What is up, shitbags?
What's going on?
I kind of like that. I was thinking about that. I was like, that feel like that sets the tone. That sets the tone. We use it at work so much. It's like instead of my sitting here cringe every time, what is up, everybody? Like, we're figuring shit out. We got this.
What's up, shitbag? That's good.
Episode number 5. Welcome, everybody. It is awesome. This is just insane. Again, every single time we start this off, like I said, it's probably getting annoying of how thankful we are. But so much happens every single month, every time, every new episode, new guest. I mean, as you guys that are watching on YouTube, Facebook, whatever, probably see, we got different backgrounds. So Brent and I, from the last episode, we both bought a house. So now we got our own little podcast room. So nice, a lot of changes, a lot of things. Yeah, right. Yeah, that's what I said. I said I just need one room to have all my toys and all my fun times in. So yeah, it's been great. It's been an insane month. We met a whole bunch of people. I'm sure at the time that we're recording this, we would have posted. We posted it yesterday, but we're locking down guests for next year. Bang going. We just went to Wichita. That was a great time. We'll talk about that a little bit, and just three openings. So hopefully by the time this episode's out, we got that full. That'll be in the December episode, which will be Brennan and I, and we'll be basically recapping the year, the awesome year it's been, and have the whole list. But like we have in the post, like I said last podcast, 2 episodes a month are going to be coming. So extremely excited about that. But
yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
It's insane that we got 21 guests already. I mean, and people planning a year and a half in advance, like to be on next December. We got it's awesome. It's been so cool. Such an awesome journey. And yeah,
I thought it was going to be way harder than starting a podcast.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, it's cool to see where everybody is. I sent Brendan the stats that we got a couple of days ago. Like our top 4 is Boston. So Kenny, I don't know if that's probably all you. I mean, that's probably where that came from. But so awesome. It's just cool to see things like that. I mean, our hometown's both of our hometowns not even number 1. I think like Appleton in Wisconsin's number 1. So it's just kind of cool how the reach that it's already been. So,
sure.
Like always, and we'll talk about it there. We got some cool guests next year, but we got to thank everybody that has helped us get here already. So not only our guests, but Jeremy Sanders, First Culture, Sean down here. We got he helps out with them. He was teaching of when we talked about it. With how we brought Jeremy in, both been great, but Jeremy, he's going to be on again next year. We reached out. We're doing a training with him next year. We're taking one of his classes. Really excited to see that, and just awesome. But huge thanks to him. Huge thanks to Taylor Tins. Finally got him convinced. He's coming on the podcast next year as well. So a little surprise there, but we'll have him listed with our whole guests. We have the Taylor's Tins coming on, which is awesome. Just great group of people. I love talking to them. Love talking to everybody that runs the Facebook post that we've been chatting with to get everything set up. But huge thanks to them for everything. I mean, you got what side right here, right there. Just awesome. And of course, Jobtown Graphics, who we also convinced to come on next year. So it's going to be awesome. Logo looks beautiful. All of the work looks beautiful. We're going to get some merch, some coins, patches. So awesome, man. It's just great. So huge thank you to everybody that has made that happen. Just like Brendan said, it's insane. Thought it'd be a lot harder. So with that being said, I think without further ado, we've got our 4th guest for the 5th episode. First one's still just Brendan and I bullshitting, but we've got Sean Duffy of Ann Arbor. He's going to be introducing himself, give a little bit of information, got Build Your Culture as well that he's a part of, and lots of knowledge that we're about to learn today. So without further ado, let's bring you in here, Sean.
Hey, what's up, fellas?
What's up? How's it going?
Not much. Just hanging out. Got off work this morning, so took a short little nap, and now I'm talking with you guys.
Yep, that was us too. So pretty nice night. But yeah, we gave you just a very brief one, and now it's time to talk about yourself. So tell us about you, Sean.
Oh, man, there's really not much. I'm just like anybody else. Firefighter, loves the job. I started as a volunteer in 2004, so I've been a fireman for a little over 18 years now. And, it's been a great ride. So I've had the opportunity to work for large departments, some smaller departments, anything from rural to city, and just learned a ton along the way. Learned what not to do, so that a lot of the things that I talk about and I discuss are definitely born out of failures of my own. But other than that, man, just an average fireman, just loving life and I currently work for the city of Ann Arbor. About 2 years ago, my wife and I made a move up to Michigan, and I've been working there. So been there a little over a year now, and that's going good too. So just gonna keep it rolling, and I get to meet people like you guys along the way. So that's totally awesome.
Yeah, awesome, man.
Awesome.
I'm glad to have you on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, like I said, I made mention there. We thank Jeremy, and I know we've shouted you out and thank you enough, but you both were kind of the first ones that we experienced once we kind of came up with this idea, and both of you guys reaching out. And I know I had like a 45-minute conversation with you when you got back to me about just tips on how to do it, and like just it was already the reach out without even having the first episode. I talked a lot when we had Jeremy on there of like the brother and sisterhood of the service, of like just it's crazy. It's awesome.
Yeah. Oh, it's definitely alive and well. That's the thing is I get asked all the time, why do you travel so much? And you do. And I tell everybody it's very little to do with me. It's about the opportunity. The fire service is so big. Sure. And, the people you meet along the way and the friendships you make and connections you have, like you have a question and there's just so many people you can reach out to, and the support system is just tremendous. And it's sad that you can't get something like that inside your own fire department, but that's just the way it goes. So having other brothers and sisters around the country that do feel the same way is a huge thing, sure. Especially if you're really passionate about what you do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I really love talking to like-minded firemen and fire persons. Just to connect like that. It's really awesome to talk to people. So.
Way to be all inclusive there, Brendan.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I mean, firemen as a whole.
Oh, absolutely. I know. We've had the conversation, yeah, especially like the girls on our shift. Like it's funny, but it's human nature. You say it, and you're like, oh shit, I gotta like. Everybody knows what you mean, but just always gotta give Brendan some shit.
I was teaching a class last year, and I said firemen, and I looked at one of the females that was there. I was like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean anything. And she's pretty much just like, screw you, man. Like I'm a fireman too. And I was like, oh, all right, so it's I don't think anyone takes offense to it, but
yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah. So, I mean, with that being said, like I said, we got a lot of our questions. Everybody knows the drill. So we got our 4 that we like to ask everybody, kind of get the same advice or same questions to get some different perspectives and advice. And Brandon and I were talking about, you're actually just the way that things fell. You're the first non-officer that we've had on there. So it wasn't like a plan that we had. It was just the way that people did. But I mean, you're exactly who we had pictured in our minds. Was obviously officers have advice and they get to see it from the boss level, but as a senior experienced fireman, like what do you do coming into the job? So kind of excited to get that perspective, because it's definitely a one we haven't had on here, so it's kind of cool. Yeah. But the first one, you touched on it a very little bit, but how did you end up in the fire service?
Well, so growing up, my dad was an EMT. And I tell everybody, like, I didn't know anything about the fire department at all. All I knew is, like, I thought whatever my dad did was cool, So I'd always beg him to go to work, and of course I couldn't. But my mom would always take me up to see him, and on the days off, he would take me down to our volunteer fire department in the town we lived in, and it just happened to be like all of his friends were either like EMTs, paramedics, police officers, firefighters. So I just grew up around that atmosphere, and I saw like how tight knit everybody was. And I just didn't really know. So like as I got older, I kind of like had an inkling, but I just moved on, and I was in one year, I had my mom telling me like, no, you need to get a job. Like you need something that's going to support you. And she put me into like AC technician school.
Oh no.
Yeah. Nice. I was like, I really don't want to do this, but we were living in Florida at that time, so I was like, well, at least I'll probably always have work. Right. And, right. The week before I was supposed to sign up for it, the class was full. So I got thrown into the electrical side of things, and wasn't really my cup of tea. Just did it to kind of please my mom. And I always was like, man, I really want to do this. And when I was 18 and I decided I can make my own decisions, I just went down to the firehouse, the volunteer firehouse in our community, and knocked on the door. I was like, hey, I think I want to do this, and filled out an application, and the rest is history from there. I fell in love with it. that's kind of cliche to say, but I was working as an electrician apprentice, and I was calling off work to stay at the firehouse for free to make no money. So that was kind of my like light bulb that came on. Was like, hey, dumbass, like you should probably go to fire academy and start doing this. So that's it, man.
Awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean that's I remember as soon as you started talking about, I remember hearing that story when you went down when we had the class. So like it's perfect. I mean, exactly you talk about is everybody says you don't get into this to make any money, but that's not why we're here. Like, and it just find that passion. It doesn't even feel like work anymore. So,
right.
Yeah. Next one we got listed. What did you do as a new firefighter to earn the respect of your crew?
Oh man, that's a tough one because I'll be honest with you. Like, everybody would like to say like that they're respected by everybody, but that's just not the truth. And you try, and it doesn't matter what you do. Some people they're just not going to like you, and it is what it is. So, first and foremost, I decided like to say like, hey, you can't please everyone, and then I started looking through and saying like, well, what are some of the people that like I look up to? Like, what are their traits, and I just wanted to model those because I knew I was going to be around for a while. So, I would say the biggest one, and there's been a lot that I've learned along the way, but the biggest one is just show up, be consistent. If you're going to be a shitbag, be consistent shitbag. Like if you're going to show up and you're going to be a rock star, like be consistent at it. And I by no means put myself on a pedestal, like think I'm better than anybody, but I do know one thing. I'm passionate about the job. I'll never apologize for that. And I'm always going to practice what I preach. So if I'm going to go to work and practice physical fitness, you're going to see my ass working out on duty. Right. And setting that standard, not just for anybody else, but just for me, personally, it's that consistency thing. Like I said, but also if I'm going to go to work and say, hey, we need to be better, we need to be training, then I need to be going to fire conferences or taking classes and doing those things. And that doesn't mean that I got to shove it down everyone's throat, but just being there, like I said, showing up and people knowing like who you are, like, oh yeah, he's into that stuff. And it's not a question, right? There's no like, oh, I thought you said you were into this stuff, but you haven't taken a class in 2 years, man, but you're telling us how bad we suck,
Right.
So
people are always watching.
And
just
that's
being
it.
consistent. Like
They're either watching because you're doing something good, or they're watching, waiting for you
to fuck up. Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely,
so,
for sure.
Just take that right out of the gate, man. Just be real. Be authentic, be yourself. Don't apologize for your beliefs or your views on things. Doesn't mean you have to be an asshole to people, but just when I show up to the firehouse, I like to know who I'm working with, right? Sure. And I don't like to have that guesswork. Like, hey, maybe today I'm going to have an all-star, but like 2 weeks from now, that same person's going to be like super shitty. This ebbs and flows. Like, I'm just not into that. Just be the same way all the time. I think that's going to take you pretty far.
I think that's how you build your culture with your crew too, is like knowing everyone's limitations and just getting better as a crew. So just being, straightforward is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think that's spot on. So next is, how do you motivate young firefighters? So you kind of talked about what you kind of strive for. So how do you try and get them to be at that level?
Well, so I'm considered a new firefighter where I work, right? Like I've been there a little over a year. So from my position, I always just try and get people to understand, like, hey, it's okay to want to be good at this job. Like, and I get it too. You want to fit in and you want people to like you, and that's cool too. But what's more important for you, like being liked or being good? Like those are the two things. And, we all got things to learn and stuff like that. But the way I try and motivate people is when we have conversations, I always just try and tell them like my personal experiences that I've learned throughout the years, like what has made me successful, what has made me not really successful. But I just try and plant seeds, man. That's all it is like, take those opportunities. If you're walking through somewhere, you got that thermal imager on, be like, hey man, do you know anything about this camera? No? Oh, cool. Like this camera does this, and this, like someone showed me that. I just figured I'd show it to you too. And just kind of be that person that, like, if there's a question, they'd be like, hey, this person might know, and that's
Right.
that go-to. And, like I said, you're going to put a target on yourself. So it's going to be hard because people are going to label you as a know-it-all, right? They're going to label you as arrogant, cocky, whatever. And that's all fine. But just saying like, hey, this isn't even about me. This is about trying to bring all of us up together and motivate them. And just, it doesn't even have to be fire talk all the time. Like that's the other misconception is just like, just be a good person. Ask about them and their family and stuff. And like, just have that conversation. Yeah. Because you're going to be with these people for a while. So when there's an opportunity to like, maybe they might be down in a slump or something, is there an opportunity for you to come in and like build them up and motivate them to do better? And, like that happens a lot for me in the gym, like every day at 3:00, most of our crew, actually all of our crew is in the gym, either for their first or second workout of the day. And we motivate each other in that atmosphere. Like, hey, come on, man. Yeah. Lift more weights today. Or, hey, keep going.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just those small moments like that, I think, that you have to take the advantage of. If you want to motivate people and you want to get people to be better than you are, then you have to take those opportunities, whatever they are, and just try and get them to start doing a little bit and be proud about that. Like don't be ashamed of it.
Right.
Yeah, I think you kind of like hit it on the head with Blatz was the one that told the story. Like, he's been around long enough where he saw the change in like that additional education, where it used to be, if you went to a conference, you went to a training, you came back and you held all that stuff. Like you didn't share that because that was what you were going to use as the leg up on your next one. And I think like to an extent, what reminded me of it when you were saying is like, people are afraid that somebody will get better than them. Like they're afraid that at that point, I think it's a lot less now, but feeling if you share the stuff that you learned, that somebody's gonna take that, be better at it than you, and then like, why did you go to it and stuff like that. Like, I think that's you hit it right on the head. Is don't be afraid to you want them to be better than you. Like that's especially as like in a mentor position, like it's absolutely nothing like you got kids, we don't. It's nothing like parent to kids, but in a sense it is like, you see them, you're like, hey, that was my firefighter. Look at them doing stuff like ever there. But like, you want to be the person that shows up at your house when you need it. And especially on your own department, why wouldn't you want everybody to be that?
Yeah. And so I'll speak from my perspective as a newer member of an organization. Like, what motivates me? It's not the kudos, like the, hey, great job, man, keep doing that. Like, that doesn't motivate me at all. What motivates me is that, hey, man, I expected more out of you. That gut check to be like, shit, like I thought I was doing pretty good. And then, somebody saying like, that wasn't so good, and I want you to do better next time. That motivates me to never make that mistake again and to be better so that I don't disappoint people. Right. So I could be like, all right, cool. Or, hey, you didn't do enough on this call. Like, I want you to step it up a little bit. Great. Cool. That keeps me in check. That motivates me to not get complacent, right. To keep going. And it's easy to do is to get complacent like that. But I think that's the biggest thing is like, everybody wants that positive reinforcement. Like if you want to motivate somebody, you got to have that well-rounded approach.
Yeah, for sure.
That's just my belief,
And I'm the same way. I like learning from my failures. That's how I learn. Like I'll do something. Like I fuck up. I learn. Then I won't do that again.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
I don't learn from like the positive. Hey, buddy, you did a good job. And it's like, okay, now I can be lazy because I know what. No, I want that negative, like you're saying. That's
just give me something.
I'm not going to take away from it because I'm going to be talking about. I'm so excited for all the guests. I'm going to be talking about every time. But down in Wichita, Jeffrey Eckert was down there, and he gave his presentation was like one of the most unique that I've ever seen because I've never heard anybody publicly fess up to everything that he did. But his whole talk was on all the mistakes that he's had in his career and what he learned from each of them. And it was like it came from such a humble and like real place of like some of the really bad fuck ups and some of the like not so bad fuck ups, but you pull from all, and it was like it was funny, but you just realizes that like everybody messes up. You're not going to do everything perfect. Like you train so that when you do fuck up, it's small enough that you can recover from it. But like you're going to mess up in some way. Nothing's going to go 100%. The one that's been circling around is the fire went out and nobody got hurt is the participation trophy of the fire service. And that it's entirely true. You show up, everything goes on, nobody gets hurt. Everybody's like, great job. We did a fantastic job. Not mind you, 17 things went wrong and we just got lucky that nobody got hurt from them. But hey, fire went out, nobody got hurt. We don't got to do anything. It's such a real thing. And I think that's such a good thing to come in is, I think talking of our career, I mean, Brett and I are ridiculously some of the senior people. And I think once we start teaching our stuff that we know about, it looks like we don't fuck up. And I think as a new firefighter, I mean, when I came in with JD and everything, watching him do search drags and ladder throw, oh, fuck. I don't want to do that. I'm going to look like I'm going to look like a fucking idiot. But not being afraid to fuck up and having that, reiteration and confidence that, hey, everybody does it. You think I just did this overnight? You think I did this? Fuck, I'm still fucking up as I'm showing it to you. I'm just doing it with so much confidence that you believe me.
Yeah, well, it's funny you say that because when we go and we do search drills and stuff like that, people say the same thing. Man, you make it look so easy. And I tell them, I'm understand, I do this to nauseum. I do this all the time. So if you don't think that I have struggles, I do. I just know how to hide them a little bit better. And when I'm trying to tell you to do something, it's certainly not because you can't do it. I'm trying to show you the way to make this look effortless, for you. And that's only happens one way. It's to make mistakes and then figure out how to fix it. And then recognize in the process, oh shit, I'm making a mistake right now. Let me correct this before it gets worse. Mm-hmm. And like you said, man, it's just all about building confidence. And I think that goes a long way. You going back, you mentioned how do you motivate people? I think building confidence would be a good way too.
Yeah.
Make them confident in their abilities and just watch how much better they perform and they do things. And when they get it right, they're excited and they just want to do it again and show other people what they've learned. That's a huge part of what we do is having confidence.
Yeah.
Right. If you fail, I'll put this. Sorry, I'm not really good at speaking.
But you have a podcast, so you're doing good.
I'm trying. I'm getting over the speaking thing. But you can't be good at something unless you fail at it. If you fail at it, that builds you up, like you said, confidence, and you do it again. It's I failed the first time. What can I do differently to increase that? So I think that's very good.
Yeah, it just sets and reps, right? Just like anything else. If we all go back to the first day we ever had hose in our hand, right? It's heavy, it's awkward. We don't know how to move with it. Mm-hmm. Fast forward 5, 6, 7 years, maybe you've taken a class or two. And the difference between when you first started on day one to, day 780, mm-hmm. It's just a drastic thing. And that doesn't happen by accident, right? That happens because you're fuck, that didn't work. Let me try this. Or I can't do that positioning because I'm not built like that person. So I have to use my assets. How does that look for me? And you just start developing your own system. Right. I think that's really what it is success is built on systems, right? Mm-hmm. Of layer after layer of that didn't work. So I did this worked okay, but it could be better. So let me try this now. And just really packaging that up in a way that you can use it to your advantage.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I love the talking to people, having everything there is you get so like-minded, passionate into it. I mean, it's exactly what you got to do. The motivation, that confidence, you see it everywhere. And I think you just right on the head. Perfect. So next one that we got in here is what do you think brings a crew together the best? So now that we just talked about being experts, but you're right behind to build your culture. What do you got to do? What do you got to do?
This isn't even skills related. Well, maybe there's a little skill in this, right? I don't know. It's unfortunate that we have policies and procedures put in place now that you can't pull pranks on people and have fun. What? Because I truly, honestly think that was one of the most beneficial things to building a crew, and building teamwork is just if they're not poking fun at you, they don't like you, so if you're sitting there at the table and no one's really talking and stuff like that, do you guys even really give a shit? but you start throwing practical jokes in the mix, and man, you're like, oh, motherfucker, I'm going to get you. You start thinking of ways like, all right, how can I get this person back? And, we've got to obviously police ourselves with that because that shit can get carried away. But, dude, it's in those moments where laughter happens. You laugh so hard that you cry. Like, like just all these stories get built. Like, just, I don't know. I just feel like that really bonds a crew together when you're able to do those things and just have that kind of relationship, because it's almost like siblings, right? Like, I have a younger sister. My relationship with her is not nearly as good as it is with my older brother, but my older brother and I went through a lot of shit together. You know what I mean? Like, we pulled a lot of pranks on each other. Like, we got in fist fights with each other, like whatever, you name it. There was a lot of different things that made us grow and respect each other. So I think when we take that out of the equation, we kind of lose the ability to bond a little bit.
I think we have to have a relationship outside of work too. Like we like going on shift outings and stuff. What was the last one? Bowling. I fucking suck at bowling, but we did it. We did it. Had some drinks, go bowling. It creates a lot of laughs, and it was a great time.
Yeah, like, dude. So I'll tell you, like, I think we're getting good at it as a profession. We have like golf outings and things like that people all do, and all those things are awesome. Like, one of the coolest things for me is like my department has a hockey team. So every year we have a tournament, right? We play the cops, and it's just, that is one of the things that we do across all shifts, So if you play hockey and you're on our department, come on, right? Like, and although it's like 2-3 hours, whatever, like that is probably one of the things I look forward to the most in the year, because you're not thinking about the stresses of work. You're just legitimately out there having a good time. And then after that, like, your guys are going, you're going to go to a restaurant, you're going to get a couple of drinks, have some food, and your families will be there. And it's just a very all-inclusive thing. And then you come back to shift and everybody talks about the game for like the next week or two. And it's, those small things like that will go a long way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. That's definitely something I would love. I don't play hockey, so it wouldn't be that sport that I push for. But that's what I've always rivaled, like the bigger cities. And I mean, I didn't know that you guys are there. That's awesome, because I know you're not huge city, but I always thought that was only like the FDNYs and shit that ever had those big games. So that's so much fun. Is exactly. I mean, we tried softball. It kind of fizzled out. Everybody got really busy over summer, but we had a softball team this year. We sucked. I mean, we were perfect record, 0-8, but I mean, it was a good time while we were there, and it just ended up that people weren't able to make it, and we had to forfeit a couple of games, and it just got too much. But like, the games are fun. Like I said, we weren't winning. We were losing drastically, but we were drinking beers, having a good time. We watched a fire that happened like 2 blocks away from the game. So like half of us were sitting there drinking after the game, and all of a sudden just see a smoke plume, and everyone's like, huh, wonder what that is. All the pages start ringing off. And so like,
the only one that wasn't drinking that night.
Yeah,
so
everybody that wasn't drinking went in there. The rest of us just sat there. We're still at the Diamonds. We're like, oh, they got knocked down. Like, oh, it's a smoke change. Like, it was just fun stuff like that. So yeah, I think you hit on the head. I mean, how many times have the Georgie prank gone on? I know Georgie listed, so the bed prank, Brennan.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we've told that story like 3 times in the last 2 weeks. It just has happened. I think
last 4th of July.
Yeah, because I think it was recently that it came in everybody's memories came up in. But
yeah, so it was our 4th of July, so we have like a big parade in town and fireworks and all that. So we take our boat out on the lake. We have a lake that's in town. And Georgie and a couple of other paid on call members are on the lake all day. But 4th of July, we're getting our asses kicked all day. EMS calls, we're just getting hammered. And he's out on just soaking up the sunlight, just cruising around on the boat. He went to one of the paid on call members' houses, and they had a broth fry and hamburgers, and they're just chilling out there. So it was like midnight when they got off the lake, and he had to clean all the buoys off or whatnot. So we're all sitting there like, okay, we're gonna get this fucker, because he was like, oh, we're eating hot dogs. He sent us pictures all day. So he came back, and me and JD took his bed and we put it by the fire pole. We set all of his nightstand up and everything, the phone, nightstand, his pager, everything's right by the fire hole, but by the fire pole, by the staircase. Outside the bunk room. So he came up and he was so pissed off like really bad because he didn't get to bed till like 2:00 in the morning, so he was exhausted. So me and JD were up. I was just laying in bed, and the bunk room was like pitch black. He came in, he turned the lights on. He's like, "Oh, you motherfuckers!" He started throwing shit. He was like, so we're all up, and he was trying to bang his bed through the door. It was making a freaking, I thought like a bomb going off in the bunk room. We're laughing. He thought he was gonna kill us. So we're all laughing. Finally got his bed in. He got his sheets on. He just laid the bed and got fired. So that was a great 4th of July.
Our lieutenant said it was like their best 2 a.m. turnout time because everybody was up just laughing and the fucking tones dropped. Oh shit! So
Time to go.
Yeah.
That's always how it happens, though. You're getting a little rowdy, and everyone's laughing and crying and stuff, and then it's like, boom, time to go to work. And I think that's the beauty of it, right? Is just like you can go from being like a bunch of like clowning around, crew to just, it's time to be serious. Like we got a job to do, and it doesn't impact your ability to perform. And so it's definitely a special thing. At least I feel so.
Yeah. I always think it makes it better. It was fun. I mean, fucking like we haven't had a perfect one since we really set it up, but like we've got a Job Town playlist that as soon as like the tones go off, it's my job to hit it and hook it up. But I'm trying to find like ways to wire speakers because the one time that we got it was like right after we set it up, we just got a fire alarm and we were like, fuck it, we're going full bore on this thing. Like, so we had Job Town playlist was bumping as we're going down, and our captain, God bless his soul for putting up with this all the fucking time. But he's sitting there like trying to listen to the radio as we're going. So I'm like, okay, I identified a problem. Like, everybody's jamming, but we're like, okay, we still got to kind of hear the radio. So we're trying to figure ways around that. But like, that's our plan, is that as soon as we get one, it goes on there. It just, anytime it's happened, either I haven't been on shift or like we've been on opposite shifts or whatever, I forget to hit the button. So we're working the kinks out. But like this shit like that, I mean, it's game time, but like you get off the truck and just, I think circling all the way back around, it does so much for a confidence. Like you get up, and especially if like you go being a new firefighter, if it's like your first one, it's like, holy shit, you see the fucking fire. You're like, oh my God, what am I doing? I remember everything to do. And like, just to look at somebody say something fucking stupid or like just have the Job Town playlist as you go. And it's like, oh, okay. Like, it's fine. I'm good. Like you shake it off, you're back in there. Like, it's just, I mean, at the end of the day, it's just it really is a bunch of clowns that just have a common goal of putting out fire and making grabs. Like,
I refer to my captain as the dad because he's the dad of our shift because he works with a bunch of kids. Like we're all in our 20s. So yeah, he puts up with a lot of shit, but in all, he jumps in once in a while too. So it's a great time.
Yeah, he knows how to rally us, and he knows how to get us riled up. So it's a perfect mix.
No, that's for sure. Yeah, you got to have that. You got to have that person. It's like, okay, all right, guys, it's time to reel it in a little bit. Yeah.
Reel it in for the next half hour, and then he's the one that starts it back up once we're back and forth. It's like, there we go. I knew it.
Right. Yeah.
You've been sitting on that one for a half hour, just waiting for us. So, yeah, it's awesome. I think that's
what makes this job the best job in the world. Working with your best, closest friends. So,
yeah,
I agree.
Like, I mean, you say it's a family. Like you're not gonna like everybody. I talk about that all the time, and you get people that you don't like to work with, you don't like there. But like at the end of the day, tones drop, or you start having that fuck around, like you start having a good time. Like it really doesn't matter. You're literally closer than friends. You're a family. Like I love my sister, but man, does she know how to fucking piss me off. Like that's who you work with every day. I go to work with 7 other people that their primary goal is to piss me off and then fire. Except for Brennan, like that's all of our goal is to piss him off. Like that's way up here, but it's
oh yeah, that's it. It's all it is. Brotherhood, sisterhood at its finest, right? Like let me just keep like turning that key a little bit.
Yeah.
Nobody I trust more, but nobody that gets on your nerves more. Like,
man, you're not lying.
It's
a
long 24 hours at the station. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
All right, so now that was our kind of 4 general questions. So yeah, we got our own spin, the uniqueness of having the first non-officer. So With that, now we got some kind of personalized ones for you. So
Yeah, man.
you've touched on it a little bit here and there, but at the end of the day, how do you best face adversity in the firehouse?
Oh man, like number one, like people got to stop taking shit so personal, and even if it is a personal attack at you, like your reaction says a ton, and it really like makes or breaks that situation. Like if you don't care, it doesn't matter, right? Like people are going to try and poke at you, whether it's for fun or they're just truly being assholes. And, one, learn to make fun of yourself a little bit, like lighten up. And then two, like if it does piss you off, like so be it, let it piss you off, walk off, do something else. And, there's people that always say, oh, well, you should go talk to that person. Well, that might not do anything. Right.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying I'd never do that, but I always like take a step back and like think about shit, because I think a lot of our problems happen where like we just instinctively react and we don't really think about things. So cool. This person's kind of being an ass, like causing problems or whatever. I'm just going to get up. I'll walk off. I'm going to think about it for a little bit. If I need to address it with that individual because I feel it's at that point, then I will. If not, then you just let it ride. It's really not worth it at the end of the day to spend so much time, effort, and energy on that. It consumes you and it makes you bitter and angry, and you just become exactly like the person that you hate. Right. And I think that's important. Is we're all humans, right? We all have emotions, and some things are going to really trigger us. But you got to ask yourself, like, why is this triggering me? Like, am I kind of guilty and I just don't want to admit it? Is that what's triggering me? Or is this person just like way off base and, they're just being a little too extreme with things? Is that triggering me? Or am I maybe just being a little sensitive about the situation and not realizing that this is a joke, right? And that I should lighten up and just joke around with it too. And there's a lot that goes into that, but I think like the best way to handle it, man, is just stop being so reactive.
Yeah.
It's like you just said, like, they know how to piss you off, right? And like that's your goal. And sometimes that's all it is. And in the events that it's not that, and there's a bigger issue, man, like we're all adults. We know how to communicate. Like I've worked with people that just see the negative in everything, and I hear them out, and then I say, like, okay, what's the positive in this? Well, there's no fucking positive. Well, surely there's a positive somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, and if there's not, like, what's your plan? Like, what are we going to do about it? Well, there's nothing we can do about it. All right, so if it's not positive and there's nothing we can do about it, why the fuck are we talking about it?
Yeah, right.
Absolutely, yeah.
Like that's my whole thing. Like, if it's a personal issue, like, hey, I'm sorry, like, how do we fix this? If you can't fix it, cool, man. You do you, I'll do me. Like, we'll just, when the bell drops, like, we're just going to get together, we're going to do our job, and then we're going to about our separate ways. And hopefully eventually that'll mend itself. But I've seen so many things go down in the firehouse, all for the fact that people like get reactive and they want to puff out their chest like a fucking peacock. It's like, you just pump the brakes, man. Some things don't warrant any response. Some do. So knowing when to like put those into action, I think is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean that it hits it right on the head. And going back to what you're talking about, so one of the speakers at Wichita, I think he's kind of put it in a perfect way. And he was talking about just I can't even think of how to word it, because I was trying to soak in what you were saying as we were going over there. But basically, he was talking about the being afraid of like owning up to your own stuff. And God, I can't think of it, Brennan. I can't even think of where I was going with it. I'm so upset about it, but it'll come back to me. You were going on such a great tangent that I was forgetting about it as I'm sitting here. But I mean, it's like you said, just letting it brush off and going off you is the best way to do things, because everybody is going to get mad. Everybody's there, and you're not going to be any better if you're sitting there just huffing and puffing and all upset of how things are, especially if you can't change it. I mean, That was like Brett and I were on the Jago train for a little bit when we were after talk. It was just the good, like,
yeah,
good.
That's a good one.
Yeah, just talking, saying good. Something comes up, it pisses you off. You doesn't get your way. Just okay, good. Like let's find a way to work through it.
Yeah,
work with the tools you got. Yeah,
getting all pissed off, not doing anyone no good. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So the other thing too is like, it always amazes me. Like there'll be somebody that has no hesitation to talk shit about someone, but when they're the one getting, the shit talked about them, all of a sudden like the roles are reversed, and it's like whoa, and it's like, dude, listen, you want to play the game, play the game. If you don't, then set the example. That goes back to like that whole motivation thing. How do you motivate people? Just do the right fucking thing. Period. And
be a good person.
Yeah, it's like John Sparrow. I love that guy, and he had something, and I'm probably going to butcher this quote, but it goes along the lines of adversity and stuff like that. And it's just like, he has a story where he's sitting at the kitchen table as a new firefighter, and they're just hearing all of these people like pick at this person, and somebody at the table said, well, thank God we're all so perfect, right? Stood up in that moment when somebody was being bashed and like pretty much said, hey guys, like enough, like you guys aren't that perfect either, and things like that. And I think that's what we have to do in those moments too, is just like have that voice of reason of, all right, enough's enough. Like, guys, listen, like you vented, you did it, whatever. But like, let's not forget here that you guys probably are going to do the same thing or have done the same thing and just choose to forget about it or whatever the situation is. Be that person. Even if it means like people don't like you, who cares? Who cares if people don't like you? Because if you're going to sit at a table where people are talking shit about someone else and do nothing about it, make no mistake, like the minute you get from that table and you leave the room, they're going to talk shit about you too. So I'm just going to set precedents right here, right now. Like, we're not talking about this. I'm not a part of this conversation. Here's what I have to say. Mic drop. I'm out. You guys do your own thing. And I think having people in the firehouse that aren't afraid to stand up and do those things is a pretty powerful thing. And people will eventually like realize like, hey, this is not an environment where this behavior is tolerated.
Yeah. And you chalked the memory, because I remember exactly what I was going to hit. I can't remember who said it, so I'm just happy to remember what I was going to talk about. But so when you're down in Wichita, you talked about it, it stuck with me, was you're the first to make excuses for yourself. Like you're saying, so what, you ran 20 calls, 24 hours, whatever. Then you get a fire, you do a training and whatever. And you're like, I should stick around and fill bottles. But man, I was up all night. We were training all day. Like, they understand. I typically do it, but in this this instance, I'm going to leave. He's like, you flip the coin and you're the one down there filling bottles. One of the guys, comes in, hey, everything's good already, and dips out. And you're like, man, what the fuck? He thinks he's better than us. He doesn't have to stick around and fill bottles. Like I had a long night too. Like you just, as soon as you don't want to do something, you're in your own head. Like, oh yeah, well they know, they know better. They know that I would do it, but I had a long day. I had a long night. I was training all day. But then as soon as somebody else doesn't do it, you're the first person to be sitting there like, oh yeah, well, no wonder they aren't helping. Like just shit like that. I mean, it can be such a negative, like let's say like a negative cancer that you can fall into in that kind of mindset when everybody's sitting around shit talking everybody. I mean, I fell in it for a little bit when I started, just the way that things were around us. It got so much better down by us. But I mean, when I started, it was like all a war between a lot of the shifts. And that was just how it was when you came in. Like, I had some of the people that I really respected that I was even second guessing, because I was like, oh damn, like on both sides of, wow, this person does nothing but shit talk, really respected them, and also, man, this guy's getting really shit on. Do I really like it was such a mind-boggling like just tunnel that you can get in where it's just nonstop shit talking of like, oh wow, look at, they forgot to run the dishwasher, they forgot to sweep the lower bay. Like, yeah, they got 20 calls. Like we would have done the same thing if that was us. I think that's just something to remember. Oh,
it is. And like one of the best examples of that is, I don't know if you guys have like apparatus checkoffs or anything like that, but we do, right? I've had my whole career, no matter where I work, it's just a thing that we do. Yep. And you see in those, like, one, how defensive people get when things are found, and two, like how quick people are to throw others under the bus. Like, oh, like this guy didn't do this shit again and blah, 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 and make a big deal about it. Right. And then the minute that they forget to do something and you bring it to their attention, like, oh yeah, like the last time you did this is like, well, hold on, it's not about me, man. So I tell everybody with that, I was like, dude, you're there for 24 hours. You can't control what was done the 24 hours prior to you got there, and you can't control what happens the 24 hours after you leave. But for that 24 hours you're in the firehouse, that is you.
Mm-hmm.
Is it really worth making a big deal about it? If the bottle needs to be changed out, just change the damn bottle. Who cares? Like it's, you know, you're going to start throwing darts at someone and doing that and stirring the pot and causing all this commotion. And it's just not worth it, man. Like you will get so much further if you're just like, you know what? It's cool. And then maybe when that person comes in shift change, you could talk to them personally and say, hey man, last time you left the bottle was like 3,800. I changed it for you. No big deal. I didn't put it in the thing, but just keep an eye on it if you wouldn't mind, you know, and please, you know, like if I leave something, please let me know too. And you just keep that shit tight. There's no need to like make this thing like a big commotion. And often we see that, man. It's just crazy to me.
Yeah. Yeah. One of our coworkers, one of our buddies, which I love, like any of the people I'm close with at the firehouse, like I'm not afraid to call you out on shit in like a good way. Like, you know, keep everybody honest. But Shugs would call me. He did that to me. It would have been even just a couple months ago. Like I got in, I forgot why. It really doesn't matter. There's no excuse for it. But I threw my shit on the engine and I didn't get around to the rig check. I don't know if I just fucking didn't do it or whatever. Get around to my personal check. I like to check all my shit as you really should.
Right.
And the next morning I had a meeting, and so I didn't grab my stuff off because I went right from shift to the meeting and walked out after the meeting, and they had a fire alarm. And I was like, oh shit, Shug. It was like I left my gear on the rig. I'm like, I'm sorry, like because I saw you throwing it out. I'm like, I'm sorry, I forgot to grab it before the meeting. He's like, oh, it's fine. He goes, but you got to fucking loosen your straps, dude. And I'm like, what do you mean? I didn't even wear it yesterday. I said, we didn't fucking do anything yesterday. We did all EMS shit. I was like, it didn't even roll. And he's like, well, you didn't check your fucking rig. And I was like, oh, yeah. I was like, either way, you're right.
Got
like,
me there.
Either way, I said for 24 hours, I didn't touch that pack, and I didn't touch that pack. Like, I was like, yep, that was a wrong thing to do. I was like, absolutely. So, just having people that check you on that. Like I said, I don't even remember what happens, but it probably wasn't a good excuse. Maybe I got in late and breakfast was ready as soon as I threw my stuff on. I don't fucking know what I did, but
it
probably wasn't a good
sheets
reason.
on Shug's bed. Me and Shug sleep in the same bed, different shift. And he froze my shit in the freezer. Well, now I learned. I was like, oh, I forgot to take my shit off the bed, you know. And I came in. He was like, where's your sheets? I was like, fuck, I don't know. In my bin? He's like, he starts laughing. He's like, no, you gotta go find them. So I open up the refrigerator. Not in there. Freezer. It's like, oh shit. In a big ice cube. He threw it in a bucket of water. It froze on my shit. I was like, that's awesome. I wasn't even upset. I was like, that's cool. So now every morning I was like, Shugs, sheets off the bed. Make a big joke out of it. I thought that was
freeze my stuff, please.
Yeah, we've suspended people's beds when they've left their sheets on. We did that in defense of one of our probies. One of the guys left, and then he worked overtime, and then he had 24 hours before he was coming back to his shift. So he just left his sheets on the bed. But we hot bunked. So he was in the same bed as our like brand new guy, our probie. So Brendan and I went and we found the one spare bed. We put like that mattress on so that our probie could have that bed. But then we took his the guy that left his sheets, his bed, perfect condition, and just suspended it above all the lockers. Like he left all of his shit there. Like we put it all up there, just nicely left everything as it was. And next morning walked in. Oh, what the fuck?
Hey, your bed's made.
Yeah, right. You left your bed. It looks comfy. Like climb up there, but yeah, it's just. I mean, having that people to call you out on your shit because you know, like we said, you make mistakes, you get lazy, you be consistent. Like there's days you walk in like, oh fuck, but it's nice to have somebody that gets right back on you. It's like, hey, you know, I get it. It was either a long night, whatever's going on in life. Either you know they're there to talk through it if that's what you need, or just there to be that little nudge of like, hey, you know, people are watching. Like getting your shit back together.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, that was a great talk about adversity and all the tangents that came off of that. But after that one, we got what is the best advice you would give a brand new firefighter when it comes to search? I know we talk a lot about practicing what you preach, and like you said, I mean that's something that you hit hard. So We know the tech college way is not the fucking best, and everybody comes out of school learning it. And it's like, hey, you got to forget everything you were just taught. So, I mean, if you had, half hour, an hour with a brand new firefighter, what would you tell them?
Man, there's so much for that question. Like, and this is why I love the question, because like you can go whatever way, but I'm gonna go a different route. It's not even like techniques or any of that stuff. Like, if I had one piece of advice I could tell somebody, and I have to remind myself of this too at some times. So it's slow the fire scene down. Like if you're going to get there, like taking the big picture, like understand exactly what you're doing, like just don't get so tunnel vision, because once you get that tunnel vision, you go to what you're going to do, you're going to be a fucking basket case. You're just going to be so overwhelmed with emotion. Your heart rate's elevated, things like that. So before you even commit yourself to doing the search, like slow it down in your mind. Take the big picture, look at the layout, look at the conditions, like all of these things, like try and gather as much facts about what you're going to do as you possibly can in that short time frame, and then put it to application. So you know what you know. I get that. You can get a person straight out of the academy. It's their first day on the line, and you get a fire and they're with you on search. Like I totally get it. So the other thing of that is just like pay attention, right? Until you're comfortable and like you've had a chance to fine tune your skills and put them to application and figure out what works and what doesn't. Don't be like freelancing like you're some type of freaking Superman and be like, well, I saw this on a YouTube video, or I heard this on a podcast, or I did this. Like, that is not the time for that shit. Like, you'll get there eventually, right? But ask the questions prior to that. Put in as much preparation as you can prior to that. But if you don't have that ability, like if we catch a fire right here, right now, stay close, right? Pay attention.
Yeah.
And that would be the biggest thing, because I see a lot of people that are eager for that knowledge, and they'll come through, they'll take a search class or whatever. And, all of a sudden they're like gun ho ready to go, but they've never even searched a fire before. So how do they know that what they just learned is even going to work? They have zero clue. And if they try to do that and the person they're with doesn't have that knowledge base, now it's just like a free for all, man. You're not even focused on the objective. Like you're too busy fighting each other, and this search isn't even happening, the way it should. So sometimes you got to put your personal feelings aside and your ego aside and realize like now's not the time to do certain things. I'm going to do the best of my ability, given the knowledge and experience I have, and we'll get it done. But, after the fact, we'll talk about it and we'll build upon it. And then maybe next time you go to a fire and that is your assignment, you could try something a little different. But you've got to have that communication with your crew. You got to be on the same page, because if I go to a fire right now with my lieutenant, right, and let's say that we've never been to a fire together before and we're searching and I teach search and I just go start doing my own thing and he has zero clue what I'm doing, that doesn't help him any, right? I'm actually a liability at this point. I'm not an asset, right? Versus if we've talked about it, maybe we've trained upon it, I've shown him and things like that, or we've been to fires before and he has that trust in me, then I can probably branch off a little bit further and start doing something different, and him be comfortable with that. But man, that freelancing shit, like we can't do that. It's going to get somebody
people get
killed.
hurt.
Yeah. So that would be my advice.
Yeah. And I don't know if this will get us on more of a soapbox than we'd like to be on here, but we've been juggling talking about the podcast and then the advice on the SOGs, and I think that's kind of a really big thing and the reason that it has its place. So we talked to some people saying you shouldn't have to have an SOG for that, but we're trying to come up with like a search SOG, and it forms that baseline where you can have that train, especially like everywhere has it, but the uniqueness of us, I mean, the chances of you working on a different shift, on overtime trades, stuff like that, it's constant. I mean, there's so many trades that happen by us, so much overtime that happens by us, like you're always there. So you can train all you want with your crew, and you should, and we do. I mean, we roll up to a fire with my captain, my lieutenant, and basically any of our guys and gals on our shift. Like, we know exactly what's going down in the first 10 minutes unless told otherwise. Like we got our captain, he wants to make an actual like playbook stuff. And like we got plan A, works until it doesn't. We show up, we see something different. Okay, we adapt, we improvise, we overcome. It's exactly what the fire service is. But having a department-wide SOG, like, that's plan A. That's what we talked about that a lot, that you have plan A and you make your SOG where it's adaptable and it allows you to change and, recognize and use your skills and everything. But having that universal that, okay, it's your first day on the fire. If it's your first day working on another shift, tones drop, you got to search, what you're doing, unless you specifically hear from somebody else saying, hey, I want you to do this. Like, it's such an easy way to pregame. It's such an easy way to get your head in the game and be universal, where like it takes away from the chiefs, the captains, lieutenants. Like, it takes a worry off of them, where they know exactly what's going to happen. The only thing they basically have to say over the radio or to you in person is what they want you to do different. Like, they know if they don't say anything, this is what's going to be done. So if I want this done instead of this, that's all I have to say. The rest is fluid. The rest is exactly how it's going to go.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing about SOPs or SOGs, whatever you want to apply. Like, you got to understand, like, and I use this term loosely because some people are like, oh, we shouldn't lower our standards. And it's really not about lowering standards. It's about establishing some sort of standard.
Yeah.
Like, we have to play to the lowest common denominator, which means like the person coming in tomorrow needs to know what this SOG says, and this is how we operate. So one, if it's not being followed, maybe they can speak up and say something. But two, so like when they're told and they're given an order, they're not like, I don't know what that means.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
The thing that people need to understand is like the best fire department in this country, hell, maybe you can even argue in the world, has SOGs for everything. Forcible entry, search, like hose line deployment, everything. The FDNY has that shit dialed in. And when you join, you get books and you need to read that shit. And I think that's what makes them so great and so successful, coupled with their training, of course. But like, those guys graduate and they get on the line and stuff like that. And it's just building upon what they've already know, that core foundation. They just keep building. And like, we've got to have that ability too. Like, every fire department in this country looks up to the FDNY, right? They're like, man, those guys are badasses, whatever. Like, yeah, they're badasses for a reason, man, because they figured out, like, in order for this to work, I have to have a system. And the system is this. And if you have no starting point, right? Like, you're just, you're all over the place, man. Like, you don't know what works. You don't know what doesn't. You don't, like you said, you could be on a trade, you could be at overtime, whatever. Everyone's doing their own different thing. Like, there has to be some sort of standardization of what we expect out of our members at a bare minimum, right? Yeah, and if you take a class and you want to like expand on that, then fine, so be it. But at least having the understanding that no matter who I'm with today, whether it be an officer or another firefighter or whatever, we all at least have that basic knowledge of what search should look like for us, or what hose line deployments, or whatever it is. This is what it looks like for our organization, and I understand it. And that to me is a principle of a winning team right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need the building blocks. Just keep building.
Yeah.
That's how you become great, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm glad you threw that out there, because like I was thinking about the videos that went around the last quite a few months ago, but about like not only you have that building block, but making them fluid, making them adaptable. I guarantee you, all the SOGs they don't have one on doing a rope rescue in a burning building with a victim.
Right.
Like, I guarantee you, they don't train on that. They don't do that stuff, but it happened, and they did a kick-ass job on it. And nobody got scolded. I mean, to our knowledge, but they've got an SOG for everything, but they also know you can't plan for everything. So it's they train, they trust, they empower. Like, you do exactly what you need to do to get the job done, but they give you as many tools as they can. Because my paramedic instructor used to say it all the time. Is like, the last day of his career. I mean, he's been doing this forever. He's a coroner now, and then teaches medic. It's kind of, I always think that's funny. It's such a I found out it's such a common thing for like people in the medical field, like EMTs, paramedics, to do as like a side gig or as their actual like main job is be a coroner. That I think it's weird. Like, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm on the ambulance. You die, I'll just slip you a card. Like, yeah, here you go. Well, perfect. I'm already here. But no, he always talked. He's like, he's convinced that on the last day that he, were to run on an ambulance, he would still see something brand new. Like
Right.
every day he thinks he's seen it all. All the stories he's seen, the stuff that he's been, he knows, like the front of his brain thinks he's seen it all, but the back of his brain knows that the last day he could see something he has never seen before in his life.
Sure.
Like, you will never plan for everything. People are crazy. Just everything's crazy. Like it's the way of the job.
Yeah, we gotta learn how to operate in the gray, like SOPs, SOGs. That's great. They're black and white, but there's got to be room in there to like operate in the gray, because nothing we do is a definite in our profession, right? Whether that's running an EMS call or any of that stuff. And like you hear that term like cookbook paramedic, right? You got this person who's got someone dying right in front of them, and they're so overwhelmed, and they're trying to like process all these things, like if this, then do this, if this, then do this. And by the time they finally make a damn decision, that person's dead, right? Or damn near close. And it's like, you could policy and procedure, you can SOG, whatever you want to call it. You can paralyze people mentally if you have too many. So I think the trick is to make one that's dynamic enough to where you can say, okay, so this is my baseline. If I was to do something, this would fit into this category, and I could just grab and pull and just say, hey, listen, here's the bare minimum of what I expect. Anything above and beyond that, great. You're a critical thinker, which is paramount for our positions. So good. Shy of like doing something completely reckless and dangerous where like you're putting people's lives on the line unnecessarily, and you're just doing some like really dumb things. You got to let your people, do what they're trained to do, and don't hold them and be like, well, the SOP says this. That's great, but the situation I was given doesn't fit into this box. So I did what I was supposed to do until I no longer had any options, and then I kind of like expanded. And we took care of it, and I think that's the whole point behind them.
Yeah, I think the baseline is safety, right? Search and find everyone. That's your job.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I threw you for a loop there. Yeah. No, I mean, there's a baseline, exactly like you said, that you got to hit, that you should be doing. But you said operate in the gray. I love playing the gray because I'm a kid. And like, that's where we are. That's where we thrive. I mean, this isn't a desk job. There's danger in it. That's my big soapbox, is like, if you think that, that everyone goes home, that everybody's got their own opinions on that. Like,
right.
Not everyone goes home. You could do everything. I mean, you could be the best trained you could be, but you could walk in, take one step, and fall to the floor. It really, if it's your time, it's your time, and you just train so that risk is as little as it can. But that risk is always there. That risk never goes away. And this is not a 9-to-5 desk job. You're going to be asked to do some shit that it's risky, it's dangerous, and if you don't want to do that because you think that your life is above I almost said savable, above life inside like a structure or something, then what I mean.
Yeah, well, you brought up that good word, risk, and I love having this conversation with people, because like it's such a word that like puts people on edge, right? Like it's funny to watch, really, and you break it down. You're like, listen, here's the thing: levels of risk depend on who's assessing the situation, right? So you can't really like pigeonhole it into one category, but two, like we tend to only focus on the negatives of risk, and we never focus on the positives. So like it's no surprise that if all we're doing is focusing on negative, why it's like this big, scary, bad thing. But we got to do a better job of showing people the positive. Like, hey, here's the situation. This is what we did. This was the outcome, and it was tremendous, right? That is going to kind of like put the risk versus benefit analysis into a little bit of a check. And the thing is, like, I honestly believe when it comes to risk, like, because we can't really agree on one solid definition in our profession, it kind of goes by the wayside, because you have like overly aggressive firefighters and you have like totally risk averse firefighters, right? We really need to meet somewhere in the middle and like have that understanding of what's going on, and really understand like, hey, what is my job? My job is to do everything in my power to save a savable life, period. Now, you throw risk into there and you say, how does that incorporate? Well, you got to first know what the mission is before you can even assess the risk. So like going back to life, if that is our mission, then you do what you can to mitigate risk. But we have to be like realists and understand like we'll never entirely erase risk. That is not going to happen. So we're writing policies and procedures in an effort to like keep us 100% completely safe. That's unrealistic approach, and you're not doing anything. You're actually handcuffing firefighters from making decisions that could be life or death for other people. So I urge everybody to like just understand it a little bit before you throw it out there and say, oh, it's too risky, we can't do that. Like, what the fuck does that even mean? Like, what do you mean? Because like your understanding of too risky might be because you just don't have the education, knowledge, or maybe experience behind you to realize like, yes, this is dangerous, but we can make it pretty safe by doing all of these things here. Right?
Yeah.
But I'm just not going to talk about that because I don't know it. And if you do, then, I'm just going to dismiss that. And we just like that conversation, man, like, I don't know. It's such a touchy one. And you piss a lot of people off when you have it.
You do. Yeah.
But it's important, with the caliber of work that we do and the type of calls that we run on and stuff, like you got to know that shit and be like, okay, this is the level of risk that I'm willing to put forth based off of what I know and what I can prove, not just my feelings.
Yeah.
Like you said earlier, it sets a standard. If you're not to that standard, we have to get there.
Right.
That's how we become good at our job.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, went from search to SOGs and everything. It's great. But yeah, it's exactly what we talked about, everything there. It's just finding that baseline and having that, doing your job. Exactly what we did. Next is kind of intern with it. Maybe we should have done it first, but we can already tell you got the passion for search. So how did you discover your passion for search?
I almost died. Yeah, that was a big fuck up of mine. And I tell anybody who listens, it's just like I didn't just wake up one day and be like, I'm gonna go teach search because I think it's cool. Like that wasn't the case. It was back in about 2007. I thought I was the baddest thing on earth, man. Like I'm a fireman, man. Like nothing's gonna touch me. I'm doing cool ass shit. And I just really didn't have the experience that maybe I thought I did. And I was a little too gung-ho about making decisions because I've been to a bunch of fires and stuff like that, and everything's gone well up to that point. And now I'm the one as a young firefighter making this decision. So what wound up happening is we get a structure fire, and we know it's a working fire. And as we're pulling up, the first due engine had a pump failure. So line is stretched, but they can't get water to it. So our engine wound up having to, assume those roles. So there's a little lag time before we can get water, right? Well, I didn't have a radio, right? That's not how it worked then. So I didn't have a radio. The guy I was with didn't have a radio either. And we walk up and one of the neighbors says, hey, this lady's in there and she just had knee surgery. I didn't see her come out. So what do I do automatically? We got to search. Let's go, man. Like we got to go get her. Like I'm going to be a hero right now, So we did. I made a decision with the guy I was with. I'm like, let's go. We'll open the door and we'll go right. That's where the bedroom's at. And we haven't, like, he's on another company. So we haven't really worked together yet. Mistake number one. Obviously, no radio to communicate. So another mistake right there before we've even done anything. We enter the building and I go right. I get into this room and I just feel like I'm alone. Clear the room. It was negative, and I'm screaming for the guy I was with, and I'm not getting any response. And I'm like, oh shit! Like, I have a missing firefighter, and just stood in there way too long, and conditions just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And we had like the ceiling come down and just rocked my world, man. Just whole like ears ringing and shit. And now I'm freaking out. I can't communicate with anybody, and I'm just finding whatever I can. Found a wall and start banging on it. Help me, screaming as loud as I can through my mask like an idiot, thinking that they're going to hear me. So by luck, grace of God, whatever you want to call it, I started doing one of these like hitting. So for sound, right? Bottom, middle, top, just to try and get a sound of like what's a wall, what's a door, what's a window, because I couldn't see shit and my heart rate's like through the roof. So I'm panicked.
Yeah.
And managed to find a door, swept the handle, opened it up, rolled out. And right about that time, the engine company was coming in on the opposite side and started putting this fire out. But I just remember coming out and just feeling like pretty like relieved that I was out, but also angry that like that was I almost died. Like what is going on here? I couldn't call a mayday, and I couldn't do any of those things. And that was the turning point for me, where I was like, never again. I'll never make those mistakes again. And I really started like digging deep into like, how do I get better? How does the communication get better? Like, how do I understand the situation as a whole of what I'm about to go into? Like, do I listen to reports of people? Do I not? Like, all these questions went through my head, and it just spurred like this deep dive into the realm of search for me. And, just kept going with it and found the things that we have now, like the survey. And, luckily UL's done some amazing studies, and I just take all of that stuff and bring it back to my personal experiences and tell people like, hey, this almost killed me, or this didn't work. And here's what I knew then. Here's what I know now. Like, we've got to do better. And, that's just kind of the story of what kicked it off for me.
For sure.
Yeah. I mean, it goes full circle what we talked about right at the start about mistakes. I mean, that you learned, if you credit everything that you have, started to teach and dug in after that, I mean, you've learned a lot off of one mistake. And that's just one, like you said. I mean, there's so many things that you learn from when you do that mess ups. But I'm kind of curious, because you seem to mention it right off the topic. So the listening to reports of victims or not, what did you find on that?
She wasn't in there, and look up. Story later was that what the neighbor didn't know is that she was with a relative. Mm-hmm. Because she needed some help, obviously. So they came and got her, and last she knew that she was there. So there's obviously a disconnect of information, right? So what I tell people now is like, no reports, nothing should change for us, right? Like, we've got to be able to read this situation and make the decision. And if the decision is, hey, I have searchable space, then we should search it. And in this particular case, we did have searchable space. It was just a matter of like, I let the information I received overload my mind, and I wasn't thinking about the consequences. I didn't slow the fire ground down enough. I didn't take the big picture. Like, what happens if I do find a victim once I come in here? Like, what's our plan? Like, I just didn't really have any thought in my mind other than they said someone's in here. We got to go now. And, unfortunately that almost cost me my life. And that's what I tell people is, don't let those reports or lack thereof get you so hyped up that you forget that like there is a system to this and how we have to approach things. Because if you do, you're going to find yourself in a really bad way. Like, I could tell you right now, in that situation, isolation was not really something that was being taught to me that young in my career. So would the situation maybe have changed a little bit if I was able to like close doors and I understood that process? Maybe not.
Yeah.
But I didn't have that information to even make that decision. So, that's the biggest learning point is like, we're the fire department. We're going to make those decisions. We can't make them based off of highly charged emotions from people that don't have all the facts.
For sure.
Yeah. I brought it up because as you were talking about it, like that's where it stuck out for me. Is we've been talking a lot about search. We went through when the new fire rescue survey came out, our whole shift sat down and went through it all. And we always talk about the no reports, but we never really talk about the reports of victims, because like you said, you're absolutely right. And that's where I kind of keyed in, is like, it was a light bulb moment as you were talking, as I was like, as much as we say, if there's no reports of victims, it doesn't change. It should be the exact same. Like you mentioned, that even with reports of victims, it shouldn't change. Now, if you got mom that says my baby's up there, then probably I'm going to VES there instead of going in the front door and doing my search. But for the most part, because I was sitting there and thinking, like, if you got your exact situation, let's say you were able to keep moving on, would you have, you cleared all the rooms, you didn't find anybody, but then that report's in the back of your head and you're like, well, she's got to be in here. Like, would you have pushed yourself to a point of, running out of air, going to a bad stuff, staying in too long, whatever it be, because you're like, well, I must have missed her. Like that's such a great. It's something you don't think of. Like I said, it's a light bulb. I mean, we always hit on the no reports. That doesn't matter. We're still going to search, but
yeah, no, and that's a great point, because when you break it down, you look at the survey, it's like 80% of on-scene reports that victims were inside are true. They're accurate, right? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
we know this, but at the same time, like, we take the data and we analyze it, and then I go, okay, great. So 80% of the time, that's good. That's a pretty high percentage. So I definitely don't want to discount it, but I also know that I have 20% chance that they won't be in there, right? So that's when you got to slow it down and look at like entry points. Like, okay, how am I going to get into this space right now? Like, is it better to flow water and buy some time back, right? Like, create that searchable space for me, put water between where I need to go and the victim, and like all of those things. It certainly doesn't mean like charge in there once you hear that and just go without a plan. And that is what happened in my case, is we really didn't have a fucking plan. And, the guy I was with, I don't know what his situation was. I don't know why he bailed, but he did. And, it is what it is. But ultimately, when it comes to search, I tell people like, hey, our intent, like, we should be glad that we found no one. Right. Like, I get it. Everybody wants to get a grab and everyone wants to have that story. But like, if I go in and I search a space, great. Like, I'm glad I found nobody. But in hindsight, like, if your house is on fire, you're like, I'm telling you right now, I just left this room and I was sleeping next to my wife and she didn't get out. That's our bedroom. Then yeah, I'm probably going to push a little further just to double check.
Yeah.
Maybe more so than I would if I had no reports, and I don't say like that's right, wrong, or indifferent. I'm just saying, like, I have you outside 100%. Like, we were in bed together. I'm telling you she's there. I'm probably going to stay there a little longer than I would otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, it's not black and white. It's always gray. It's just
right.
It's the way things are. So yeah, that's spot on. That's like we talk about, is they're doing their VS when you're signing on stuff like that, or just your event, like, your, what do they call it? Your second level search or whatever. Now that they're trying to come up with a new term, that it's not just one room, you can go everywhere. Like, there's got to always be an acronym for everything, but it's the same thing that everybody's been trained. I mean, even when I was in fire school, even though they couldn't teach us everything, my instructor did a really good job of, like, not 75% of the class was like how you actually firefight, and then the last 25% before the test was like, okay, now here's how you have to take the test. Like, it was a good refresher. I feel like it set you up pretty well. But that was something you talked about, is VES. I mean, you get up there, you check the room, you go to isolate, but you take a look first. And if it's nice up there, you close the door, you isolate, you search, but then you go back to it. Maybe you bump over and do the next room. Like, and that was brand new back then. I mean, I say back then, it was 5 years ago. Like, it wasn't that crazy long, but that was brand new stuff. Like, that was not accepted to be taught at the fire school, but it was
still
like,
not.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, that's why that I teach with him a lot, and he's actually gonna be one of our guests next year, because it's just, he found a happy medium that I really enjoy helping him out there. There's not many. I love the helping out the new kids, I'm a kid. The new students and the people, everything going through, but like, it's hard. You feel like you have your hands tied. So it was nice to get that refreshed, but it's always great. And it's hard to teach that in the school. And
Yeah, it is. I mean, their hands are tied a little bit, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
They got to teach you, unfortunately, how to pass this test. There's curriculum that the colleges want taught, and I get it. They're trying to standardize things to the best of their ability, but I'm still a firm believer in, like, man, screw these private academies. Like, I wish we can go back to fire departments just doing their own academies and saying, like, hey, you work for the city of Memphis. This is how we do shit here. Yep. I know Detroit does not give a shit if you went through the fire academy. Like, you get hired with them, you're going through their own academy, because you're going to learn how to do shit the Detroit way, because it's tried and proven for them, the way they do things in their environment. And it's just, people often forget, like, you hear that thing like, well, that's not what IFTA says, or that's not what Jones and Bartlett says, or whatever. And it's like, that's great. That is a base knowledge meant to get you to kind of understand a little bit of our profession, knowing that like the real world is waiting. And if you were lucky enough to get there, you could just forget most of what you just learned because you're going to find out real quick. It's not really applicable to what we're doing. So you hope that the people you're with have the knowledge, right? And they love to train and they can have that experience and stuff to pass on to you so that you can be better. But that's not always the case, man. Some people spend their whole career right there at that like fire academy level. And, I think that's what's hurting our fire service and paralyzing us in our decision making. And I don't know. That's a little sidebar on that, but if we could just go back, I think to having people teach us who have truly been in the shit to tell you like this doesn't work and this does. And if you want to make it out of this career, like unscathed or fairly unscathed, or, have a good chance of not dying, like this is how you need to be doing shit. And, unfortunately we got people that go to the fire academies and they've been graduated from the fire academy for 6 months and they're teaching a new class with 6 months of experience. And it's like, their only role is to teach them the book. It's like, no, man, like we need to teach people the job. That's what we need to do.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just how things are. And I wish it was, but I get in trouble. I don't get in trouble. They don't get mad about it, but like I find myself talking myself in circles all the time when I'm up there. Is I'll go on something about real life or there, not even just fire for paramedic. And then I'll be like, but for the test, you got to forget everything I just said, and you got to remember this. Like, it's just, it gets annoying to have to do, but you're right. Your hands are tied. You kind of have to do it at times. You want to instill all the years, even me, just 5 years, like getting up there was great, but you try to instill everything you learn from, smarter people like you, and in a 6 month span, and you're like, okay, they can't take this all in. Like, this is going to be their job. This is going to have to teach this to them. What can I get them a base level of?
Shit, man. Like there's no way. I don't look at myself as a smart guy. I fuck up all the time, and I only know what I know because I'm a dumbass and I've done some bad shit, that kind of forces it. And I've had people be like, "What were you thinking?" And I'd say, "I have no idea," So I think that the thing is with any teaching, like just humble yourself and be like, "Listen, man, that doesn't work, and here's why this doesn't work, and this is what I learned from it. I'm going to show you the way I need to show you, but I'm also going to let you figure this out so that you can at least get out of here with some type of understanding that, like, if I'm faced with this situation, I know for sure that A, B, and C is not going to work for me. Despite what the book says.
Yeah.
I think if we could do that for our students, like that would go a long way too. Is, hey, you've passed the test. Congratulations. Now let me show you all the shit that this book says to do that doesn't work.
It's the first thing that everybody gets when they walk into the firehouse. I love hearing that because it's true everywhere. It's until drastic things change, which probably won't ever. Like, that's the first thing you're told. First day of the job, I guarantee you, I put all my money on it. Anybody listening, anybody watching, anybody that's going to get into it, the first thing you'll hear is, "Oh, great, you went to school. Here's what you need to forget about. Like, this is how we actually do it."
Yeah, and it's so confusing. Like, like, what do you mean? I just spent 3 to 6 months, depending on your academy, like, being told this is the way, and you're telling me, like, forget it all. Like,
God damn it, I go to school again?
So you took somebody who, like, maybe knows, like, a tiny bit to now deflating them, and they're like, well, I don't know shit.
Yeah. Right.
And, like I said, hopefully whoever's passing that on is building them up the right way and not putting on, like, passing down bad information or whatever. Like, some of this stuff is accountability on our end too. Like, we can't just blame it all on the fire academies.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You got to teach them the confidence. Like we said, confidence to fail.
Yeah.
Confidence to get back up. I mean, that's a feat in itself, and goes unnoticed, but definitely an important one.
Trial and error your own way.
You want to hear my own way?
Yeah.
On what's that? On anything?
Oh.
Anything.
Yeah, you said trial and error your own way. But what do you got? Your own way. What's your own way to figure out anything?
Oh, got you. Like I said, I'm kind of a dumbass, right? So my mom will go back and tell you this. Like, my mom will be like, "Sean, listen, I'm telling you, you're gonna do this, and this is what's gonna happen." I'd be like, yeah, whatever. You're just saying that because you want to boss me around. And I always been stubborn as fuck like that. Like, let me figure it out by myself. And when I
Usually the hard
do,
way.
yeah, when I do, then I'm like, wow, you were right. And that sounds harsh, but like that is just how I learn as a person. Like, we can have a conversation. I could sit in a class for 8 hours to learn some cool shit and whatever, but I've just gotta mess it up a bunch of times. Like the simplest things. I'll mess up 4, 5, 6, 7 times, and I'll get so frustrated and angry. Like, what the hell? Like, why can't I get this? And someone's over there chuckling because they got the answer of how to fix it. I'm like, and I look at them, I say, don't say a fucking word.
I'm gonna get this shit.
Yeah, I'm gonna work through this. And finally, when I've had enough, and maybe I haven't gone through, I'm like, okay, what am I doing wrong? And then someone comes in, and it could be the simplest thing, and I'm like, God damn it! Yeah. But because I spent the past hour and a half messing it up so many times before someone stepped in and said, let me show you, I have a good foundation of saying like, hey, dude, I tried this thing like 27 different ways and it doesn't work. So I can confidently tell you and myself that this is a good way, and that's just, I've always found that to be tried and true method, at least for myself moving forward. And I'll even do that for students. Like if they take a class of ours, I will let them fail over and over and over until I'm like, hey, can I show you something? And then I'll show it to them, and you see their eyeballs like get this big. They're like, well, shit. And I'm like, yeah. But it's important for me to let you work through the process.
Yeah. I like working through the problem.
Yeah, for sure.
And it sticks with me.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Mistakes. I mean, it's been the theme of today is making your own mistakes, learning from them. So now we're flipping gears to your other kind of specialty. Is your backdrop. So what in your eyes, in your experience, what is the backbone of a strong culture in the firehouse? Good, bad, what kind of holds that culture in place?
Man, so I will say this. Yes, I have the Build Your Culture brand, if you will, whatever you want to call it. I don't claim that I figured out any magic potion for how to fix all the problems. And I certainly am no like professor level at this shit. I'm not going to write a book on it. The things I know about culture have really been, again, founded by like my own frustrations. And when I found myself in a different situation and I finally put those pieces together, I'm like, oh, well, if we would have just done this like, 5 years ago, maybe we'd be a little further ahead. And watching other people around us too, like go from being like incredibly like disgruntled to actually being somewhat happy. So all of that to say this, I think a good culture in a fire department, it's not even administrative, it has nothing to do with like physical fitness or any of that shit. It's just instilling a love for the job. If we can instill a love from the job from early on and like tell people about the tradition of the fire service and just like let them carry that on and urge them like, hey, I want you to make your own traditions and I want you guys to make this your place. And man, the morale just goes through the roof because everyone's got buy-in. Like I'll tell you, like you walk into a sterile firehouse with no pictures on the wall, or you walk into a firehouse that's got pictures of jobs they've been to and all this other stuff. And the guys are just like, you could just tell the vibe is different. You're going to a station full of employees versus a station full of firemen. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's culture wise, moving forward, if we can just instill more of a culture of firemanship and just like telling people like, it's okay to love the job. It's okay to know about where we came from and why we do the things we do. And it's okay to challenge things as long as the intent is to make them better. Right. I think we'll see ourselves a lot further, and that word culture goes so many different ways. Like there's so many avenues you can go with it, but I truly, truly believe if you want to kill this profession, get people to stop learning about it. Right. Because people in higher positions or whatever, who maybe just like kind of weaseled their way in, if that's what you want to call it, who don't really know where we come from as a profession. They don't know our roots. They don't know these things. Like, they're just concerned about the next promotion to make money. They don't give a fuck about the future of the fire service. They only give a shit about what they're doing right here, right now. And I think if we can get people to understand, like, this thing is bigger than all of us, right?
Mhm.
Any one of us put together, the best fireman, the best admin, like whatever you want to attach it to, like the fire service is bigger than anyone. And we have to preserve those traditions, right? And like climbing up the ladder is not an excuse to forget how to climb back down. Like you always got to remember where you came from. But just like tell those people coming in, like encourage them, like, hey, get outside the four walls of your organization. If you find something that's going to benefit us, bring it back. We want to hear about it. Like those positive traits, and stop harping so much on like, oh, well, your shirt's untucked and you're not wearing, you're not wearing the proper pants. That like, fuck, my pants are blue. My shirt says whatever fire department I work for. I'm shaving, my teeth are brushed, like whatever, dude. Let me just be a fireman, And we have made our job from blue collar to white collar. And we have taken away all of those things in between that make firemen. And like people are starting to lose their love for the job and it's just becoming another job. And that is a problem. Like that is really severely hurting our fire service. Right. So I'd really like to bring it back to like, I want the people coming into the fire service to be here because they fucking love it. Like they want to be here. Not just because somebody told them like, hey man, you work 9 days a month, you get all this time off, you get a fairly decent wage and you get a pension. Like, dude, some of that pension shit is going away. Our benefits and stuff are going away. So if your whole reasoning for like wanting to be a firefighter is, oh, I get downtime and maybe I can sleep during the day or I could sit in recliners or I could just like grab ass all day, like whatever you want, you're in the wrong line of work.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that's all there is.
100%.
So starting from day one in the academies, all the way to like day one of you getting your job and you're coming through the training division, man, like instill that culture of this is the best damn job and here's why. And you better fucking love it. And if you don't, you might as well just leave right now.
Right. You have to earn your place at the station.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like an indoctrination, I guess, if you want to call it, I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's we talk about that all the time. And like I kind of hinted to, it's not a 9-to-5 job. I mean, it's not cubicle work. It's not any of this administrative stuff. But we literally have corporatization, the corporate, whatever word you know the word I'm looking for.
Sounds like me.
Yeah. But like that's just where it's all coming from, and maybe some of it has to do with the private, like you said, being private academies and at the colleges and Jones and Bartlett, all the other stuff that we like to blame. But at the end of the day, I think you solved it right there. Is it's just not teaching and not preaching, being into the job and being excited about it and loving it. Like it's just it can be as simple as that.
So how do I put this? Is one of the things I hate the most is like, oh, this is a business. Oh, great, but it's not a fucking Fortune 500 company either. So, like, if your sole purpose is making money off the fire department, like, don't forget that our fire service was solely founded on volunteers before anybody was paid.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there's a prime example right there for getting where we came from.
Yep.
And that we have paid firemen now, like making fun of volunteers and all this other shit. And it's like, again, your mind is so polluted with bullshit that you forget where we came from and why this job is great. So like we've put these things in place over so many years, decades and generation after generation of us really fighting against what our true purpose is. And I think you find some fire departments now that are trying to like bring that ship around. But man, like if we look at culture as being like a giant battleship with that tiny rudder, man, it's once we go so far off course, it is so hard to like turn that ship around. And, it's just, would we be in a better place if we never lost sight of our purpose to begin with? I think so. Unfortunately, not for all, but for a lot, we have lost that purpose.
Mm-hmm.
But I think now is the time. Like there's guys like you guys and, all these fire conferences popping up and all this stuff. Like people have finally said enough is enough. Like I'm taking the fire service that I dreamed about as a kid or I dreamed about when I wanted to be a fireman. Like that's the fire service that I want to be a part of. And we're taking it back. And I think we're doing a pretty good job and it's going to be an exciting time over the next 10, 15 years. But, we got to keep on that fight, man, because we have been hijacked by aliens and it is so weird. Like I don't understand it, but It is what it is.
Yeah, I love that battleship analogy. We talked about that a lot when we came back from that training. I mean, just the small rudder, big ship. It takes a lot to move it, but once it gets going, like it's really hard to stop. So you just got to make sure it's in the right direction. Otherwise, it takes a long time to do a 180. I mean, it's
yeah, that's it. Like, you ever back up a trailer? Like, I suck at backing up a trailer, so I want to use this analogy, but because I suck so bad about it, I'm gonna use it because I know how frustrating this is. Like, you make that tiny little adjustment, and that trailer's going one way or another in a big way.
There, go straight again.
Right. Yeah. So, like, what do you got to do? You got to reset, and you got to keep going back. Yeah. So my point to that is, like, if we can think about our own careers or our fire departments or anything like that, of us pulling a trailer and trying to back that sucker in, like, all it takes is little adjustments, right?
Yep.
And you're going to decide the course that thing goes in. So just be mindful and be intentional of what adjustments that you choose to make, because sometimes, man, you make one and that trailer goes all the way around and you jackknife that motherfucker, you're screwed. So,
absolutely.
That's our fire service, unfortunately.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, I mean, that concludes the kind of main questions. Now we got the really intense and hard ones that stump everybody. So the first one we got, it's the second time this question's been used, which is kind of funny because Kenny said he actually didn't even see Jeremy's episode when he asked that. But the question from the previous guest. So last guest we had on was Kenny, and his question is literally and simply, why are you here? So as a new firefighter walking the door, that's what he wishes that he had asked, or why am I here? Why is that he'd asked? And I think you got a perfect answer for that just based on what we've talked about. So.
Yeah, so it's funny. I just did a keynote with that very topic. Why are you here? And it's all about, like, not forgetting our purpose. And I'd be honest with you, when I started, nobody was in my ear telling me, like, hey, why are you here? Like, blah blah blah. Like, nobody did that. It was just like the good old boy system. You came in, you threw your gear on the rig, like, you played video games, you hung out, like, high five, like, whatever. Like, that's what I thought the fire service was. It took me many years and a few close calls to realize, like, I'm not set up for success at all. Like, if anything, like, I've got a death wish right now. So answering that question, why you're here, is huge. And that's the whole cliche of, like, oh, this is a calling. And while all that might be true, like, you got to understand, like, you're here because you decide that you wanted to be a selfless servant, a public servant, so to speak, not self-serving. And, the minute that you become self-serving of, like, well, what can the fire service give me? And I want this and I want that. Like, you've lost sight of our entire mission. And I think it's important to have that conversation with people. Like, I can tell you why I'm here. I'm here because I know the oath I took was to place the citizens I was sworn to protect above myself, and to be the best that I possibly could be when I'm called on, whether that's an EMS call or a fire call or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm here to make a difference, because when I retire and I walk out and I'm sitting there on the couch talking to my grandchildren and stuff like that, and they say, hey, Dad, or hey, Grandpa, like, what did you do? I can, like, smile and know that my life's work was meaningful. Like, I made a difference in the lives of the people I worked with, in the lives of the people that I might never meet again. But in their time of need, when they needed somebody, I was there. And, it's not about thank yous and all the accolades or awards or any of that bullshit. It's not. Like, you want to collect things, collect memories, because this job will give you some of the best ones and some of the worst ones. Right. So I think that conversation has to happen of, like, telling people, like, listen, before you get out of here, like, you really need to answer this question for yourself. Why are you here? And if it's for the betterment of the fire service, for the people you work with and the community you serve, if it's any other answer other than those three, it's probably not the job for you.
I 100% agree.
Yeah, that's spot on. That's absolutely right. So, like I said, you have a great answer for it. Perfect. Now, this next one, you said you were excited to talk about. You had a great one. So I got high expectations. So, as you can probably guess, based on what we just asked you, the next one is, what question do you wish you asked as a new firefighter, or do you have still yet to be answered in the fire service? And that's going to be for our next guest, which is going to be Captain Yankee, our very own.
Yeah. So I'll tell you, like, the question I wish I would have asked is, what's going to happen to me? And that sounds like a daunting question, but let's be real. Like, when you join the service and when you retire, you're not the same person. Like, it just doesn't happen. Right. And I remember, like, I got some really shitty advice from an officer when I first started. He said, let me tell you something, son. You have an opportunity. You're going to have a great pension. You're going to have awesome benefits and all this other stuff. Do you want a family? I said, yes, sir. Eventually. And he goes, well, when you're dating girls, if you tell them they're a fireman and they got an issue with it, you better get rid of them right now, because this job matters more than they ever will. Because when they divorce you, they're going to take half of everything. And I was like, oh, Jesus. Wow. Like, as a 19-year-old kid, like, that's the advice I'm getting. I'm like, whoa. But the advice I didn't get was, hey, listen, you're going to see some pretty terrible things. Right? And you're going to be you're going to have a front row seat to the worst day of people's lives. You're going to see death. You're going to see all of these things, right? You need to be prepared mentally. How are you going to handle this? And having that conversation, because I'll tell you, man, like, I have no shame telling people, like, this job has fucked me big time. And I don't mind it. Like, I'm not complaining about it. I just know, like, the 18-year-old happy-go-lucky kid I was versus the 37-year-old firefighter I am now. And, like, even my sense of humor has shifted and all of these things because of the way we have not been taught how to cope with things, right? So later in my career, when I'm, like, more than a decade through my career, when I'm, like, finding out things like, why am I having nightmares? Why am I having mood swings? Like, why are all these things happening all of a sudden? It's directly the byproduct of nobody told me one, how to deal with this stuff, but nobody really honestly said, like, this is going to happen to you and you need to be prepared. So I was in a spot, I'm trying to figure this out on my own. I'm married, I have kids. I'm like, man, I'm taking this out on my kids. I'm taking this out on my wife, and like I said, I had to go talk to somebody about it. And it took me to talk to somebody who's not even in the fire service to get tips on how to handle this and how to do better and, manage this stuff, because it's going to happen. And if you don't think it's going to happen to you, you're so naive, right? It's really in how you manage all of that you're going to get the outcome. So that would have been the question I wish I would have asked. I'm not saying I would have made a different decision, but at least I would have been prepared for what was coming, years later, instead of just, like, waking up one day wondering, like, what is wrong with me?
Yeah, and you go ahead, Brendan.
I was just saying that I relate. Like, I think you come in the job and you're like, okay, well, a lot of people talk about mental illness, and you're like, well, it's never going to happen to me. But, going through this career, you're just like, okay, yeah, no, I see it now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish I knew, like, how am I going to deal with this, right? So I agree 100%.
I can't stress this enough. I mean, I know you talk to everybody that has that and talks about it, but, like, just the mental health. And I think one of the things that maybe it's a good thing that we're talking about it more, that you see it more early, or maybe it's because people are just more susceptible of it. But, like, the earlier you notice it, the easier it is. I mean, there's things as simple, like I said, I've been doing this for 5 years, and we've got some weird trauma shit that we get. Like, we run constant traumas and stuff, and I bring that up because there was a couple months ago that we had a call, and it involved a 19-year-old that tried to hang himself, and, like, we did everything, we did our job, we did a great job, and we were all talking about it, everything was great. Went home next day, was hanging out, and then my lieutenant called me. And this summer's been crazy. The summer before that's been crazy. And my first summer has been trauma city. I mean, we have been landing helicopters like crazy. I don't know what happens in Beaver Dam. I said it before. One of our guys said it doesn't burn, but it fucking bleeds. Like, it's just, there's so much stuff. And they were all negative. Like, I mean, everything, they're really bad. There's been a couple here and there, but they're just shit show after shit show. And you're like, fuck, another one, lost another one. Great. We're who are we killing today? Like, all the fucking jokes. And so my lieutenant called me, and it was like 2 days later, and he's telling me and he's reading me what the hospital said. And dude had a bunch of fuck up. Like, he didn't have any brain activity, all this stuff. And so I'm like, yep, fuck it. We killed another one. And then he gets to the end of it, and he's like it was like the Sunday or whatever it was, like 2 days after. He's like reading the notes, and he goes, spontaneously awoke, was extubated, no deficits, no anything, like perfectly fine. And I like choked up because, and I was like, what the fuck just happened? I was like, what? Great, he's gonna be great. But I was like, what happened? Why did that just happen? You know what I mean? Like, okay, it wasn't a bad outcome. Why did I just get upset about it? And so like I talked to him like a week later, and it was just it's something simple as that of like catching it early, that we talked about stuff. I got some things off my chest that I was like, oh fuck, like that's real. You know what? Like it just it happens. And I think talking, getting that out, I mean, you can't stress enough. You bury it for 10, 15, 20, your entire career. Like it's harder to realize. You don't think you have anybody to help. Like I hope that's the change as you hear and you talk about and you see young guys. I mean, I'm a young guy, 5 years in, like you see young guys that say they've got these traumas. And I think you see some of the old people like, what the fuck can you already have? Yeah, I've been doing this for 30 years. You've been here for 2 years. Like, I'm hoping that the change is that people realize it sooner and that we're getting the little help instead of the trauma dump help at year 30. And it's just like, we can't stress it enough. I think that's a fantastic question.
Well, the thing is too, man, it's like everybody's experience is different. Like I can look at the same thing and it may not affect me the same way it does for you, regardless of years on the job. And I think we got to stop like with this BS of, PTSD, like that's fake. Like that's not a real thing. Like it is a very real thing. And, I can't speak for everybody else, but I'm tired of seeing firefighters killing themselves because like we do a really shitty job. Like some of the worst calls I've ever had in my career that still like stick with me today, like give me nightmares and shit. I remember vividly getting back and the only question asked was, hey man, are you good? I'm like, I'm good. And then I asked myself, I'm like, why did I say I was good? Yeah. One, maybe in that moment I wasn't ready to think or talk about it because I'm still trying to process what just happened. Or two, which is the most likely thing, you say no, I'm not good. They're half-ass listening anyway. They're like, we'll just go talk to the CISD team.
Yeah,
it's not really taken seriously. And dude, I've been on calls where like I probably should have gone home, like all seriousness. And one time I did ask to go home, and I was like, listen, my mind is so fucked right now. Like I need to go home, and I got told no. Like no, you can't. You have to stay here. Sorry. I'm like, I'm telling you right now, like I'm a paramedic and I cannot function in the capacity that I'm supposed to for the next 16 hours of my shift. Like this is really bothering me. I need to go home. And their answer was no, because they cared more about keeping that ambulance in service than they did about treating the person who needed help. Right. There was no, hey, let me see if I can get relief for you. None of it. It was all about how much more money can we make by continuing to run transports. And by the time I got home the next day, like I was so numb. My wife was like, hey, how was your shift? And I said, fuck off. I don't want to talk about it. That's how I treated my own wife.
Yeah.
Because the people that were supposed to help me didn't. Yeah. So now I'm taking this out on people who are not related to this incident whatsoever. How do you think that works out? Right. So I'd like to see a different approach to it of, hey, when somebody truly says like, no, I'm not good, like you should probably listen. And if they say, hey, I need to go home, like what is more important, their mental health or continue to keep that rig in operation? And I know that like you can't just down rigs and all that stuff. That's not what I'm saying. But like at least saying, hey man, let me make some phone calls. Like I can't send you home right now, but we're going to get you home.
Yeah. And so, I think that's one thing. I mean, we can speak from experiences. I think our department does a really good job in the areas around us. Like I said, I hope that it's a really positive change that starts going everywhere. But I've been a part of 2 calls where we've sent people home. And both times our deputy chief was arranging that stuff while like they were on the call. Like they were out there while they started transfer, while they're at the hospital, like knew their people, knew exactly what was going to happen and what was going to be like. And it wasn't really, they got back and you knew they needed to go home and it was okay. And on one occasion, he drove them back and his house was at the time like 30 minutes away. And he drove them back home. Like he is like, we don't want you driving anything. Like there's just, and I've always been extremely impressed with that being a part in how odd and strange and fucking chaotic the shit that we have is with all these traumas and stuff, that like actual trauma calls. But it's there was two that I really was impressed of the two times that happened, that it was like without a doubt, without a question. And then a third, I remember everybody like told the guy, like, hey, you got to go home. And he's like, no, I need to be here. And like, I think that's an important thing too, is knowing, like, letting them still make that decision. Because there's some places I hear that takes to the extreme where people talk about later, like, I wasn't ready to go home. Like, I needed to be there. I needed to be with my crew. But there's places like, you're on a traumatic call. That means you gotta go home. Like, not thinking of it, just going through the motions, and you gotta go. Like, you gotta go home. We'll take care of it when they really, like you said, is different for everybody. They do need to be here and do need to be with their crew and go until the morning and, you know, go through the motions or whatever it be. But
that crew might be the only support system that person has.
Exactly.
You know, like, so you're absolutely right. Like, letting them make that decision, but also monitoring. Like, dude, sometimes just like the phone calls or the text messages, like, hey, are you all right? Like, everything good? That goes a long way too. Like, just knowing that somebody took the time to be like, hey, they know that I just went through something. Maybe they were there and they're not going through it, or they heard about this call and they're just checking in. Like, man, that puts it in your mind. Like, maybe the people I'm with actually do give a shit, because if they didn't care, they wouldn't ask. Right. Mm-hmm. So the fact that they're reaching out and they're asking, like, that's who you need to talk to and vent. Cool. Awesome. Absolutely. But like, normalizing feelings, you know, and I think is a big thing. Like, just telling people it's okay. Cause like, I had a really, really messed up call. Like, I just never cared to do it again. That was the day that I remember coming home and I told my wife, I was like, I'll never be a paramedic ever again. I'm done. And the crew that I had in that point was just like, oh yeah, we've run that before. It's no big deal. Like, whatever, like, you're going to see a ton of those. And, you know, it is what it is. Not a single person asked, including the person that was there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And it was just like, fuck, you know, like, I don't know if this is good. And so you start processing those things and you realize, like, okay, I'm giving so much of myself to this organization, to this profession, and to people I don't know. I think it's only fair in turn for us to start saying, like, I matter too, you know,
absolutely.
And reaching out. So,
yeah, I mean, that got deep. Wow. That was, but that's a great question. And it's like I said, I mean, there was just one that happened down by us in Wisconsin, down in Milwaukee, and we're really good at killing ourselves, and we should be. You know, we take care of everybody. Take care of ourselves is just as much of the importance. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, like I told you, 2 hours is going to fly by. So we're at the end of our questionings. We got our kitchen table that we like. So for you, I mean, I don't have any kind of notes from any questions. I think we got on a lot of rabbit holes and got through a lot of good stuff and filled any of those. But at least at this part, I'm going to give the floor to you to maybe do some pitching for your Build Your Culture, any of the trainings you got, Great Lakes Hot, anything like that, and just
so one of the things that I really feel passionate about is like we said earlier, like, you can either be part of the solution or part of the problem, you know. And so with Great Lakes Hot, I figured, you know, I was like, you know, I came from a place where we had training all over the place. Like, anytime you wanted to go something was going on. And when I moved to Michigan, then that just really, that feel wasn't there. So I said, hey, I'm going to create Great Lakes Hot. And so we're going to our third year. This will be our third year. It continues to get bigger every year, which is awesome. So the intent of that is to bring in people that I've had the pleasure of making contacts with throughout the years and teaching with and everything else, that are very good at what they do, to bring a like FDIC or Firehouse Expo or that type of level of instruction to the state for people that may not be able to afford to go elsewise, you know. And then we're not competing by any means, but what it is just saying, like, hey, we're going to have 3 days. We're going to make it affordable for you. It's going to be well before or after, you know, any of these other major conferences, so that we're not competing. Just come and learn how to be a part of something bigger, and love the job and get this. And it's going great. So this year we have some phenomenal guests. We have like Chief Avillo, Chief Starnes, Sean Egan out of Buffalo. I'm going to name everybody and forget. But essentially, we've got a lot of good speakers coming June 12th through the 15th of 2024. And we're doing 2 days of search only, which is the first that we've ever done. So if you sign up for the search track, it's just 2 days search. That's all that is. And then, obviously we'll have our engine company, truck company stuff. We added extrication this year because that was a need that a lot of people felt like they weren't getting that training anymore. So, it's just one of those things that we hope to see a lot more people. I think we have room for like 230 people this year, which the first year we did it, we had room for like 60.
Nice.
So,
nice.
It's definitely going good. So I would just tell anybody, if you're looking for a pretty affordable conference, you're going to get, the first day is like Michigan-based instructors, because I'm very big on giving back. So somebody gave me a platform once, and they still continue to do so. So I feel like, hey, if I'm doing this conference in my state, I need to do that for firefighters here, who have a message that maybe they for whatever reason don't have an ability to get out.
Yeah.
So you'll get the 12th and the 13th, which is the lecture, and then 2 days of hands-on training for is like $375.
Oh, wow,
So, so like I said, trying to keep it affordable. By no means are we making money off this. We're just paying the bills, so to speak, which we're all fine with. That's just kind of how we decided to run things. And, so there's that on that end. So registration should open about first week of October for Great Lakes Hot. As far as anything else going on, I think we got a couple spots left for our search with live fire class in Decatur, Texas. So that's going to be cool. We'll be doing the searchable versus survivable lecture on day 1, followed by skills. And then day 2 was live fired and acquired structure. And we were able to get a second acquired structure for an additional day.
Nice.
Yeah, that's going. And the only thing other than that is Firehouse Expo, man. I'll be there September 25th through the 29th. So doing Joey Baxa and the guys from Insight Training, they're doing a really cool limited staffing live fire program. So I'm helping those guys out with the search portion. And then I'll have my brand new lecture, the civilian rescue, removing the occupant, on the 28th at 8:00. So that'll be a fun one. Yeah. So that's really it, man. Got some personal changes happening in my life. So probably not going to be traveling as hard as I was before, because I need to be home with the family. But if you see something on there, get on it, because coming into 2024, I'm probably not going to have too much availability to do anything.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, yeah, good. Lots of good training. Searchable for survival. That was the one that Brennan and I went to when you came to Wisconsin and Campbellsport with Jeremy, and it was a great one. It was an awesome one. We took a lot back, and I think, it really changed kind of how, especially our shift, our department slowly, all 3 shifts do things a little bit differently. It's part of why, back to the conversation about the SOGs, is we're looking at possibly drafting one, but that was definitely something that kind of set the tone of our shift and got us all talking and conversing about that, is having those conversations and those pre-plans and stuff. So it's a great lecture series, and we missed out on the hands-on part. You guys just did the lecture, but that sounds just even better. So if you guys are down there, check that out. It's awesome training. So anything else you got to add?
No, man, that's it. I appreciate you guys having me on and let me just run my mouth for an hour or 2 hours.
Yeah. No, we appreciate
it's crazy how time flies.
Yeah.
Talking.
Yeah, no, we appreciate all your help. Like I said, taking the phone call way back when we started this, all agreeing to come on. It's come full circle. So we can't thank you enough. So whether you know it or not, now we've got our kind of last tradition wise. So as we started, we got a thing on our slogan, everything. It's just don't be a shit bag. So we like to send out every time with that. I'll start, then Brennan, and then you take us away, and we'll see you guys on the next one. So as always, thank you guys for watching episode 5. We got Wes Yankee next, our very own captain at Beaver Dam. Really excited to talk to him. And just keep looking forward to it, and don't be a shitbag.
Don't be a shitbag.
Simple, nice and simple, right? Yeah, it's okay to love the job. Many people hate you for it, and that's fine. If everyone likes you, you're probably not worth being liked. So stand up for something, even if it means losing a little bit of friends. Those probably aren't the friends you want anyway if they can't respect you for what you believe. So yeah, man, just stay at it. Make the fire service better. Don't be a shitbag.
See ya.